Good evening, paranormal community, and thank you for partaking in this episode of the Odyssey Files. I am your diseased ridden host, Michael O'Neill, coming at you live from, I don't know, my office. Got a cold, so bear with me for the next 2 hours. Uh, my wonderful co-host, Mr. David Sawyer, is not here because he cannot figure out his internet situation. So, as always, bring back a now so much a regular co-host that I stopped putting like guest co-host by your name, and it's just with Michael O'Neill and Sena Dyksman.
Thank you. Yeah, hey, I love
Well,
it.
welcome back to the show. Um, I assure everybody who listens weekly that we are not going to destroy anything tonight.
Okay. Is that a habit?
With you, yes, because
Okay.
when you started the first time you co-hosted with me, we destroyed the afterlife.
Yep.
Then the next time you co-hosted with me, I think we just destroyed Earth, or was that the third time?
Uh,
I want to say we destroyed religion, but I thought that was Scott's show.
Probably both. I would say both
It might
because
have been both.
yeah.
Um, yes, I think that might be it. So, so far, the last 3 times you've been on, we have destroyed something somewhat major,
Okay.
depending on your point of view.
Yeah. Somebody's beliefs system.
See,
Yes.
yeah, just people's moral and political and religious views. Not the major.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually how I phrased it to Dave when I was talking about the last time that you were on. I was like, "Hey, we didn't destroy, anything major this time. Like just Earth. People will get over it.
Yeah. It's yeah.
At least the ones who survive.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Reality.
right. Reality's a bitch. But tonight we're gonna take it easy.
Maybe.
Not maybe depends. Not only because I don't want to think all that much. it hurts the brain. But everybody loves stories, and we're coming up to Halloween. Month and a half now, so we're about 3 months behind when stores and grocery stores have started putting out candy and decorations.
Yep.
A little behind the curve, but yeah. So I've known you now for a number of years,
Mm-hmm.
and I realized when I posed this show topic to you, I have not heard a single one of your stories.
Really?
I,
I'm sure
I
I've shared a couple.
No, like we have our own
Yes.
because you joined me on investigation, and there is one investigation we've done. I kind of would like to bring up because I think it's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the one we did down in Casson,
Yep.
but yeah, I have never asked you for any of your stories,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't really volunteer information.
I only if people ask, then I tell. Otherwise, I don't.
That's what I mean. You don't volunteer
Yeah.
information. So if I've never asked,
Mm-hmm.
which is on me, then I would never have known. So, uh, I mean, you've alluded to some here and there, like we'll be talking about a case I want you to help me on,
Yep.
or something like that, and you'd be like, "Oh, this I do this, everyone," So you've kind of alluded to some, but now we're gonna get the stories.
Okay.
But first, we have you guys, listeners.
Yep.
So maybe I don't know if I could make it so I was prepared. I could bring up the stories on my laptop here and be ready. So
So
there,
you're clouded there, and so hard to focus and figure out what button to push.
no, I got it.
Oh, okay.
It's just gonna take me a minute. there we go. We're all ready. Um, there is one here. It's the second one that
Yeah.
I really don't. I really don't have anything to add to it. It's a story that it's a topic that Dave and I have hit a lot, especially recently. But we've never gotten a take from this context and like from a psychic medium type uh, perspective.
Okay.
And so uh, when we get to this, the second one, I don't think I'll have too much to add to that one.
Okay.
But we have to go through number one.
Yes.
And here we go. Number one. Oh my lord. See, I'm gonna blame that on the sickness because I forgot the mailbag. The Odyssey Files is proud to present the mailbag. And we're back.
I was wondering if you remember that. Okay.
I've been really good, but it's a little rusty.
Mhm.
So having two weeks off, only supposed to have one, but they just messes everything up. What can I say? Just kidding, partner.
I think he's just trying to push for a new computer from somebody. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? He definitely needs it, but we'll get it there. I do need a new laptop myself, so maybe I'll give him my old the one that I'm on right now.
There you go. Perfect.
All right. So anyway, number one, thinking of starting paranormal investigating. So to start, I've had a few interactions that I'd consider paranormal. My mother told me in the early years of my youth that I would regularly interact with people who weren't there, but I chalked that up to maybe they were imaginary friends that I made up. About 7 years ago, while leaving my girlfriend's room with no one in the house, I'd walked into the hallway and heard a loud from the room that I had just left to find out a large oak dresser, very heavy, had moved about 2 feet from where it was just a minute ago. I could even see the dust imprints, but it was now somewhat blocking the doorway I had just gone through. I thought through every possibility that it could be, but for the life of me, came up with nothing of this reality. Now, years later, and curiosity higher, I want to see if I can start answering some questions about the paranormal myself. Do you guys have any helpful information for a starting investigator with little paranormal experience? Reliable gear, equipment, do's, don'ts? Thanks. Now, I know that a lot of the longtime listeners of the show are probably going to themselves, "Oh shit, he's going to go off on another tangent."
Mhm.
I am not, and here's the reason why. This person is doing it not only for the right reasons, a reason that a lot of people
Mhm.
get into it, and that is to find their own answers. But they're not like, I want a paranormal experience. How do I go about that? They're like, how do I start? Is what's good gear? What are do's and don'ts? Those are questions that everybody who wants to get into the field needs to ask. And I respect this person for doing it in that way.
Yep.
So obviously, like for me, I have my own set rules that my team follows. I wanted to bring them up, but forgot. But I have like 9 rules, and they're all pretty simple. Rule number 1: you never investigate alone. Rule number 2: you don't whistle or whisper or any sort of change your voice to sing. You don't do anything other than just talk during an investigation, because that sounds different on a recorder, and I can't tell you how many times things have been written down as evidence and then like, oh yeah, no, that was me, I was humming. Well, you shouldn't flip and be humming, is all I'm saying. Things, like never run, turn off all of your anything that would have a signal, cell phone, iPad, whatever. either turn it off or turn it on airplane mode.
Yeah.
I mean, and there are a bunch of other stuff. I also have a list of mentalities, is what I call them. A lot of things that people believe about the paranormal that they don't necessarily need to be there. Number one, and I actually think I just used this at the last investigation a week ago. Just because it's quiet doesn't mean they're not talking to you. That is the number one mentality that people have, that if it's quiet, there's nothing here, this is boring, we need to start provoking, we need to start riling stuff. No, you don't. Just continue doing what you're doing, because you don't know if they're actually trying to talk to you or not.
Right.
That comes during evidence review. So, reliable gear, obviously. People love the K2 digital recorder. A good video camera. You don't necessarily need it. It just kind of helps. What, did you just have a whale in your yard or what?
In mine?
Yeah, because all of a sudden there's like this
No.
blow.
No, nothing. That is so. You always tell me I have some weird noises come out of here, and I nothing. No.
Yeah, that was really weird. It sounded like a whale was like blowing its water through its hole. Anyways,
Okay.
I've never heard that one.
You sure it wasn't your cold?
No, I don't make that kind of noise unless I'm sleeping. In which case, I wouldn't know that I do anyway. All right. So anyway, getting back to the topic. So yeah, an EMF meter, a digital recorder. That's about it. I'm sure Sena will probably confirm that probably your best instrument, your best thing to use is your own body. In feeling if something's around you and hearing the noises around you and trying to see, using your own senses. I don't mean having the spirits use your energy or let them use your body. I don't mean that at all. I mean, you can use your senses to try to figure out if something's going on or not. So yeah, but like a K2 and a digital recorder, you could probably get that for under $100 and be ready to go. The only thing that I would add, and people who listen to the show know that I preach this over and over and over and over again, get training from a reputable paranormal team. Do not just go out on your own. Do not trespass. Do not go to the local cemetery just to start, doing shit. Go out with people who, I don't want to say know what they're doing, but I mean, not experts. There's no such thing. But people who have been doing it for a while.
Experienced.
Yeah, experienced. There we go. Well, I mean, I always just say reputable, but yeah, experienced.
Mm-hmm.
That they have experience in doing that. My team does it. I don't think that I've really turned down a single person who has ever wanted to try it out. That's why Haley and Sam contacted me years ago, was they just wanted to see what it was like. So there are teams out there that will do that. There are teams that won't. Just move on down the list until you find somebody who is willing to give you that training, and you will be able to incorporate your questions into your investigations, and hopefully you will be able to find your answers. I've been doing this for over 12 years now, and I don't think I've gotten a single one yet. So you're in for the long haul. I've got a lot of other questions answered, just not particularly mine. But yeah, that's my thing. I love the fact that this person is trying to do it correctly. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I do. So I definitely agree that never go into it by yourself, and always, okay, everybody is psychic, everybody's an empath, which is whether you know than not. You've used, when you feel energy, it's when your hair stands up on the end of your your neck and stuff like that, when you're around something that just doesn't feel right, that's clairsentience. That's feeling energy or reading energy. Everybody has that. And so you just need, listen to your body, because that's going to tell you everything. And so that's not to go in there. Please don't go in there. Just, yeah. But also, if you can, if you do have a psychic or a medium, definitely bring them along. It helps a lot to verify a lot of things when you're doing, doing investigations. The other thing is make sure that you protect yourself prior to going into investigations. Make sure that you, learn how to bubble up. Just learn some type of protection. It could be bubble up. It can be, let's see, I'm just trying to think there was cloaking, armor up, whatever you feel, that protects you, or even saging before you walk in. I don't see that is. That's usually for when you come out of investigations. Please sage, because then you have anything that's coming out with you or trying to hitchhike out of there.
Unless you're me.
Yeah. yeah. Okay, Van Helsing. Yes.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I still laugh about, and I told the story multiple times about when we came out of that cast and investigation that we'll talk about later. You were smudging Cameron,
Mm-hmm.
and I just kind of stood there, and like you weren't motioning to me whatsoever, and I was finally like, do I need to? Do I need to be smudged? You just looked at me and you're like, no. and on with life we went.
Yeah.
But yeah, so unless you're me, which nobody but me is.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, very, very good advice. Continue.
Okay, and then do not provoke. A lot of people will do that when they're walking into an investigation. They try to provoke them. No, they were live beings at one time. Treat them with respect.
Mhm.
Uncool when you do that. I'm sorry. And there's going to be a lot of problems if you do. I'm just going to tell you, you're going to get some nasty stuff, and you're not going to be able to handle it, especially if you're first time in. You have no idea how to handle these. And make sure that it's not a real spooky one. Start out with a real easy, like, we got a couple hauntings here, but they're not really bad. They're nice ghosts, and they just like to come over and come out every once in a while and say hi. Not ones that are really bad. Don't do your first one, or it's like that somebody killed somebody in this house and they're still around. Don't do that, because you're gonna ask for big trouble, and you don't know how to handle it. So make sure. And then I would truthfully, I would, same thing that Mike just said, go with another paranormal team if you can, to start learning the ins and outs. It's their experience, and they know when they walk in how they're supposed to walk into one. You don't want to just barge in. They learn how to walk in together and then spread themselves out in the right way, and then how to talk to them too. There's a certain way that you actually talk to spirits, okay? And it's just, and ghosts, and it's just you just, it's better to go with somebody that's been through it, a team, not just one person, but a team, and then start out that way, and then venture off if you feel like it, or just join the team if they offer it to you, because you're better off finding somebody who has experience and then following them.
Yeah, there's nothing better than having a team. So I'm just going to tell you that right now. If they offer you a spot, if they're looking for an investigator and they're willing to train you, have at it. If you mesh well, because there have been some potential investigators, who have come out and tried it, and they don't mesh very well with me. They have different priorities than what my team does. They're the people who want the experience. They want Waverly Hills. They want the jails. They want those kind of investigations, and going to the completely benevolent Leduc mansion, where nothing is going to jump out at you, nothing is going to harm you, is boring to them. And they don't want to listen to you. They want to do this. They want to rile things up. What if we do that? I actually had an investigator. His first investigation was a private home where there was a documented suicide. And his bright idea, which I did not know about until after the fact, was to try and antagonize a suicide victim, to try and get him to interact. Needless to say, he did not last longer than that investigation.
Jeez.
But people just he's a good guy. Don't get me wrong.
Mhm.
Just have different ideas on how to proceed, and it happens.
Mhm.
It's not the investigator's fault, and it's not the team's fault. It's just not meant to be.
Right.
So you got to find it. If you're going to find a team, find one that you mesh really well with, that shares your priorities and your goals. Um, Alrighty, that's all I got. Let's move it on to number 2.
Okay. All right. Number 2. I'm up here. As a medium, can you attract spirits through watching paranormal shows? I am still learning to navigate my mediumship abilities. I've had 2 instances lately where I was watching something of relevance and then was visited by some sort of spirits. The first time, they'd move objects, so I know I wasn't imagining it. The second time, I'd been watching Dead Files. I didn't feel particularly scared, but that night I felt like I was being psychically attacked. Weird dreams, feeling someone grabbing my foot while asleep, or awake, I'm sorry, while awake, all of which related to the cases on the show. I've dismissed. Okay.
I would have dismissed it.
I've dismissed it as imagination, except my cat seemed to be protecting me. She woke me up by wrapping her paw around my forearm. It was firm, almost like a human grabbing your arm. She has never, not once, done this prior. That night she did twice. She also rolled up against me, being very cuddly, and typically she likes to be near me, but barely touched. It was very unusual. I'm wondering, as electromagnetic, non physical beings, is it possible that we could travel through media in that way? Could I be projecting them into existence after watching that kind of content? Would grounding and protecting before watching a good idea? I learned a lot and have my experiences validated through watching the psychics and mediums on such shows, but don't want to make myself vulnerable. I often feel like a toddler learning to navigate the spirit world. Update. Today, I found a bite mark on my thigh exactly matching the bite or the teeth of one of the beings on my dream after watching Dead Files. It was weirdly emphasized its 4 little pointy teeth in the dream, and now I know why. I was definitely be clearing and protecting afterwards. Yeah, I can't even read anymore. I will definitely be clearing and protecting after from now on. Wild. Sorry about that. Also, I lost track there. Yes, you can pull things. It's what you believe in. Everything is energy, frequency, energy, vibration. And if you really deeply think that things can happen, you can make them happen. This actually showed this on, and people don't believe, but on Supernatural, on one of the episodes that actually happened on one of theirs. And yeah, they see that it's not real, but actually I've learned a lot from that show, believe it or not. And it is factual. If you believe it so hard, something can actually be true, even that. But it's also, I have found in one of my travels here, talking to a woman when I was doing an investigation, and she was talking about a book she was reading, and on that book was the author, but also parts of things that were taking part in the book. And she asked me about it. She says, "Does that if I read this and then if I look on the back of the book and think about the person, can things exist?" And I said, "Yes, you can create because of that. Just focusing on something and then believing that is actual, and then you can actually project it right to you. Yes, that can happen. But you can also tap in. When you tap into things that are actual, especially like the Dead Files, I believe those are a lot of actually existing things that happen on that. You're not literally tapping into an episode of something that is actual. It's real. And so we're all connected. So when you're tapping into something, you actually can see it, and it can, I'll tell you something. So it can happen, and you can project it to you. We know, if we, as psychics and mediums, we know when we're tapping into something to block, when we're tapping in, we can see them, but they can't see us or even get to us. We've already learned that because that's just part of, um, as we go along, and we just learn that we have to block one way that people can't, or things, when we're tapping into them, can't come back and get us in any way, but we can tap in to see what's going on. And the people don't realize when you do that, you can actually, an invite. and you literally just made a connection, and they can come to you just like that. And that's exactly what she did. He or she. I don't. I'm sorry for the female, but yes, exactly what they did.
So now Dave and I are under the expressed like 99.9%, guarantee that just by watching. Now you're not trying to tap in, you're not trying to connect, you're just watching.
Mm-hmm.
The Dead Files. You're watching a horror movie. You're watching whatever show you want to watch that's paranormally based. That you can't bring something into your house just by doing that. And I don't like it when you do that, Sena.
Yes, you can.
I'm gonna have to edit that out.
Because again, we manifest things. Everything is energy. If you believe it, you can literally manifest, or actually like create it in your existence.
Yes, but that's not, because like the way that we always phrase it is, if you're just sitting on your couch watching the TV,
Mm-hmm.
you can't invite something in. But if you're watching it while using a Ouija board, then yeah, you can, because you're trying to actually tap into it.
Correct.
And we like to use the example of, and this is what brought up this entire topic. Like this, 2 years ago, this wasn't even thought of as anything that needed to even be discussed. But a bunch of Discovery Channel investigators decided to go to Salem for a live Halloween event. And they decided that one of the experiments that they were going to do was write sigils. And they had people at home do their own sigils. And then, of course, people in the chat and whatever were like, this just happened in my house. This just happened in my house. And so now that brought up the whole, like, well, if you're just watching, does that bring something into our homes? But they were legitimately and literally trying to tap in and do this stuff. So yes, of course it's going to happen.
Right.
So, I mean, if my question again to you, and let's see if you can answer correctly this time. If you're just sitting there watching it and you're not trying to tap in, and of course you don't believe it because you're smart enough to know that things don't just travel through the TV without an invite or the intent to do it, then you can't.
No.
No,
but this person is highly gifted to where when she was watching it, she was actually there, but then brought it back with her.
Right. I did get that instance or that kind of assumption or whatever from reading it, that while she was watching the show, she was trying to tap into it.
Yes.
And so yeah, I get that, and that's why I wanted your opinion on this and why I was in a different context. Because everybody that has ever written it, and I think we've done this question, in different variations, like 3 different times, but it was never from, I'm a medium. And so is this possible? And so that changes things. And so I wanted to get your impression on what happens when you do that as a medium.
Yep. And as a medium, they're opening up literally a porthole. When they're tapping in, they're opening a gateway for them to get to them. That's just it's like talking on telephone. It's the line. You literally just open that up. As soon as you tap into them, they can tap into you. Unless, again, we know that was like, no, make sure that you can tap in and then you stop it. We're on their side. So they can't come in and talk, to try to see us or see what we're doing. Just like an investigation, I won't tap in prior because I won't give it any heads up of that I'm coming.
So this almost has nothing to do with their actual like watching it. But I'm curious because this popped in my head now. Now, what happens if let's just say you're watching the Dead Files, and obviously the episodes air months after the investigation has taken place, the reveal has taken place, the solution is made. What you wouldn't really get anything if, let's say, the investigation was done, the solution was given, they took that solution and cleared out the house. You wouldn't if you were watching the episode then and tried to tap in, you wouldn't tap into anything.
Incorrect. People, we live past, present, and future at the same time. So it doesn't matter if they've cleared it now or not. If they're very gifted, they can tap into the past or the future on that episode and see what's going on. And that's what it depends on how gifted. We have very gifted people now where they can, when they're watching something, they're like they're there. And so they can see what the process that they went through, but also be connected to whatever is there that they're investigating. And that's, they have to be careful. It's like they end up projecting themselves, whether they know it or not, when they're watching shows. Or there's like, oh, that'd be really cool to be there. And if they're so gifted, they can actually be that, or that thing can be brought to them. And so they have to really be careful now these days. That's why it's really important to probably learn protection. To like, okay, we don't want to pull anything here when I'm watching an episode of anything. It's just like, no, leave it there. And all you're doing is you're observing. Learn to just observe. If they learn to just observe when they're watching something, nothing will happen.
Okay, now I have another question. And this is one that I've actually been waiting for a while to get. I actually tried to write to Amy Allen when I saw this on a Dead Files episode to make sure I could get clarification, because I did not want to inadvertently do this myself. And I remember this case that she did, and it had to do with a spirit who was just mad, and he was acting out and he was doing stuff. And the reason why he was mad was because, like, investigators, like what I do, what you do, went into this home and pulled him back like he wasn't there. He was on the other side. And somehow something that they did pulled him back to that location, and he couldn't get away. He couldn't get back or whatever, and he was pissed about it. So I tried to write to Amy about, does that happen often? How does one do that, or how does one avoid doing that? Because I can understand that if I went into the LeDuc mansion and William is on the other side, but I know the history of the place, so maybe he's supposedly there, and I start asking questions and I start trying to bring him forward and do this, could I inadvertently pull him from the other side? And how would I go about never doing that?
Okay.
So, I mean, I guess my question is, A, is that actually possible? And two, how would you not do that?
Okay. This happens a lot with loved ones. I'll just use that as an example. When people pass, but they keep being held here, it's because the people here don't want to let it go.
Can't let them go. Right.
Right.
I remember we've had that conversation.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing with there. If you want something, even though they passed, they don't want to pass over, and then they hold them there. It's just all those people they want them to stay there. So that's how they hold them there. It's the will, it's energy, and they hold them there so they cannot pass over. And so that's how it happens. The emotions is so strong that's what holds them, and they can't move on.
Well, right. I mean, I get the whole keep them from passing over,
Mm-hmm.
but if they've already passed over, how do you pull them back?
There are certain tools that they can use to not allow them to go back. Yeah.
Right. No, I get the whole not going over.
Right.
How do you pull them back? If
But-
they're already, if they're already,
Okay, remember. Okay, so this is actually the call because you're an investigator. This is awesome. You've said many times we can clear your property. Yes, you have spirits here, and if you want them, we can rid them of your home,
right.
and or I pass them over. But if you want them back, because some of them get used to having them there. There's a lot of people that have them in their homes. They're just so used to having them there. They say, oh, maybe I want them gone. And so they'll ask, one of us to come over and clear out the home or whatever, pass them over. So they'll leave. But all of a sudden they're like, I really want it back. All I have to do is have such a strong will and emotion. It pulls them right back. That's all it is.
Boy, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, because as an investigator, at least for me, and again, this goes back to story number one, where we're talking about goals and stuff. It's not my goal to keep a spirit there,
Right.
especially if they want it to go over to the other side. And I definitely don't want to pull one back
Mm-hmm.
when they're right where they want to be.
Right.
And so I don't know, when I didn't know that that was possible. It shocked me when that was part of like her "this is what's going on" type
Mm-hmm.
thing, and I really like I worried that have I ever done that? Has anyone on
No.
my team ever done? I'm just saying that those are the questions that went through my
Right.
mind, and how do I make sure that I never do that?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It just makes sure
because
that everybody is respectful in. Sorry, to mean to interrupt, but in investigations, when they walk in there, your intentions are just to investigate.
communicate, yeah,
Right.
communicate,
Okay.
right?
But the emotions usually of the owners or whatever is what's holding that there. If it's a loved one that's passed, that's why they're still there. So we have to tell them that. It's like your emotions have to be nulled here. No pulling anything in, nothing, as far as just using your abilities as investigating. But we don't ever want to hold anything here. So that means that you have to make sure that you don't have attachment to anything here.
I actually had a case where uh, the my client's mother, who didn't even live in the house, um, her son, so my client's brother, uh, no, I'm sorry, it was his uncle, and it was his mother's brother, had died in the house, and they felt that he was still there, but she, the mother, had built like a shrine,
Mm-hmm.
like pictures and toys and stuff, little knickknacks that he had collected throughout the years and whatnot, sitting in their basement, and that was part of uh this what we told him to do. I'm like, you need to get rid of that. you, you need to stop holding them here because that's what's doing it.
Right.
And like your mother is the one that is holding him here.
Mm-hmm.
Like we even had it on the spirit box of like, do you want to be let go? And you gotta, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
a yes. Um, I I kind of lost contact with them, but last I heard, I think he did something to it, but like the mom did something else, and I don't know. It was he wanted to all of a sudden start his own paranormal team, and I was like, yeah, I'm not dealing with you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing to do with this case, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was a weird one. But yeah, so I mean, I totally get that. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't ever going to be the cause of it because of what my team and I do.
No, because you have no attachment. You walk out and make it's just always an investigation. But if they get intrigued by it, you've got a couple of them on your team. I happen to know your team personally, of course, because I've been. And sometimes they get intrigued by certain things. It's like let it go. No attachments. No.
Don't follow the rabbit.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And that's what they have to remember. When you go into investigation, you have to leave everything behind. Then you're done.
Yep. All right. Anything else in this one?
No.
Nope. All right. Number 3, mystery light shining in window. The story happened during December of 2020. I'm not a very good storyteller, so apologies in advance. I'm not sure if anyone has experienced something similar, but I lean towards this being more of an alien UFO experience versus ghostly. Please share what you think if it could have been. It was approximately 11:15 or 11:30 at night, and I was laying down trying to fall asleep. My bedroom is in the northeast corner of the house on the second floor. There isn't a house directly across from my room, just some landscaping, not wooded at all. While I was laying on my side, I had my eyes open, just staring at the wall directly across from my window because I was trying to wind down. Suddenly, there was a perfect circle of light on my wall. It was all the same color and brightness, not like a flashlight that has some variation, and was a little smaller than a frisbee. It lasted a few seconds before it disappeared. It showed up 2 more times. Each time there was a sound that accompanied it. The closest thing I could use to describe it would be like when you get x-rays done at the dentist. After the third time, I got up to look out my window, but there wasn't anything outside. My windows have wooded blinds, not fabric, and only a small portion near the bottom was pulled up, probably 3 inches. The next morning, I told my family, and my mom mentioned she saw a flash of light in her window, which is on the southwest corner of the house, but didn't hear anything. Being a person of science, that night I took a heavy duty flashlight to my wall. In order to mimic the brightness of the circle, I was holding the flashlight less than a foot from my wall. So this beam would have to be pretty strong. With my bedroom being on the second floor and nothing being directly across from my window, I struggled to come up with a logical explanation of what it was. So I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens. Um, Honestly, I don't know. Uh, that's a weird one. If it was moving around or something like that would be different. Uh, but this circle of light appearing on your wall three times for only a few seconds, and even being also on your mother's wall. The only thing that I guess I really even can't say. The only thing that makes sense here, because it's the paranormal, which never makes sense. Um, Somebody visiting you, um, something like that, and visiting your mother. So maybe a distant relative, maybe your grandpa, um, something like that. Could be your spirit guides. Um, Although I don't know why they'd be going and seeing your mom. Maybe they're going to tell on you for being up. I don't know. Um, but I mean, I, obviously I chose because I think Cena is probably going to have a better answer than me. um, but I mean, if it was brighter, if it expanded, I mean, it's just this small little frisbee light on your wall. Uh, doesn't really seem. I want to say it doesn't seem like anything, but I mean, obviously it's something. I just don't know where it's coming from. Um, I can't say that it's a car because you probably would have noticed it a lot more than that one night. Like you would see that all the time and know what it is. Plus a car light, not going to form a small circle of a frisbee that's uh, all the same color.
Yeah.
So I mean, I know that white is innocence, isn't it, or is that blue? Blue is innocence, isn't it?
It varies depending on what you're dealing with.
Well, white is pure.
Yes.
Okay, there it is. White is pure. Um, Maybe you have an angel. I don't know. That's my answer, as awful as it is. Uh, but yeah, I want to hear Cena's opinion here.
Okay. For one, there's not a lot of information. I mean, I would like to know about what the noises that he actually heard. So it's kind of vague on the description that he's giving. And I mean, I would been asking a lot more questions on this one
Well,
for the
well,
information.
if it's anything like when I go to the dentist,
Hmm.
it's kind of like this bloop, like a kind of a beep, um, followed by like this. It's kind of like beep,
Hmm.
sound that you hear.
Hmm.
Um, so I mean, like I get it in my head. I can't recreate it for shit, but um, anybody who's had an X-ray at a dentist would know
Hmm.
what that sounds like, and it is a little different with the fact that the mother didn't hear any sound but still saw the light. But
Hmm.
to your point about lack of investigation or not lack of information, he didn't say the mother saw the circle. He just said she saw light.
Hmm.
So who knows what that could have been? It could have just been a coincidence.
Well, because then also, I mean, he took the flashlight. Well, did he see anything on the wall when he did the flashlight? He just tried to, uh, duplicate what he saw. But I'm just going to tell you, no, that's literally a porthole being created, is what that is. That's why he heard the buzz. It's a porthole. We have a lot of wormholes, portholes that are being created. That is what was going on, and that's why
Who's
it has
creating?
another dimension is trying to put, or it could even be like a future. So portholes are created to go into this dimension, and it could be from any dimension, any other world. It's just how they move to one planet or another or universe. Um, for instance, and then I know this is just a movie, but it's just how I can explain it a little bit better. Um, Doctor Doctor Strange, when he was creating that, okay, that's what it actually is. You can see, you can hear that, and that's creating a porthole, and you can go to it anywhere, and that's what that was. It's a porthole being created.
Well, that's rude of them. They didn't even knock.
But that's what it is. I mean, you just walk in and it's like, oh, and it could have been his future self or an alien. Yeah. It's just whoever was trying to tap into this world or universe. That's what they were doing.
I have more questions about that, but we have more stories. So I'm gonna we'll put that off for when Dave and I have you back for all of the random other topics that we have multiple questions about.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good. I'm waiting for that.
Um, yeah, I mean, I can see that. Uh, my question obviously is why? Why the porthole? Why there? You know, but again, for another time, unless you have more you want to add, obviously.
No, like I said, it's just not enough information. I mean, how long did that last? I mean, he said it just like it didn't last very long. But he said it happened a couple of times. I mean,
For a few seconds.
right. And I was like, that sounds like something's trying to tap in. When you last for a few seconds and you hear, it's like kind of like pushing in from a layer. You're pushing through a layer from one universe to another or one world to another. That's what they're pushing through. That's where you're hearing a noise.
Gotcha. All right. Moving on.
Okay. All right. I get the next one, number 4. Blue gray eyed shadow head figure. We've lived in a certain military installation for half of a year. Recently, an old friend visited and took me to a volcano, or rather, a live-in ground depression in volcanic rock throughout the area. We've collected some of the rocks for the kids to bring home. Ever since he departed his visit, my 3-year-old son wakes up screaming at 3 a.m. in the morning. He is inconsol- I can never say this word, inconsolable for a few minutes until we get him back to sleep. My 7-year-old son sleeps in his room, and at 3 a.m. one morning, he screamed, sprinted into our room, and was physically shaking. He said he saw someone slowly peeking up from beside his bed with blue or gray eyes. It was shoulder up peak of a black or dark gray figure. It then slowly lowered itself, and that's when he screamed and ran. Sorry. My wife decided to have him sleep in another room and our 9-year-old daughter and with our 9-year-old daughter, and everything was fine for him. My wife bought sage and other spiritual things to cleanse the entire house. Last night, my wife decided to lay in my 7-year-old son's room until he fell asleep to get him back to his routine now that the house was cleansed from evil spirits. My 2 sons and she all fell asleep in there. My wife was awoke in a panic with a fallen sensation. Immediately, my 3-year-old began his inconsolable scream. In the morning, I woke up to all 3 in our master bedroom. But that was fun. I've since tossed all rocks from the volcano as well. We've read about shadow people, jinns, etc., but nothing equates to what I've seen, seen happening in our home. Are there any similar experiences from anyone else, or are there any suggestions to settle this behavior? Yes, those rocks definitely, they can, volcanic, but alien forces can be connected to them. It's just that attracts them. You're pulling part of their property. And they're trying to get it back, and so they're connected to those. They know where they are. They can feel where they are, and they're going to seek them out. And so, definitely bringing them into your home. You just brought aliens into your home.
Oh, is that it?
It's pretty simple. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, because he hasn't had any experiences since he's removed the stones, and that's, I mean, pretty easy to say. Yeah, that's the connection, and we all know that there's green and blue and gray aliens. So it fits the description that was seen, and they're not there to harm. So they're just going to peek up to see they were probably looking for it. They probably were all the rocks, because it's part of who they are and it's their property. So they're probably looking for him. And the child happened to look up at that time, and at the same time, it was looking at him because he felt it. You could feel energy. The child's very gifted, so looked up at the same time, feeling something, looking at him, and yeah, it was. And the child felt a presence as well. So
I yeah. When I read this, obviously my first thought was you shouldn't have taken the rocks.
yeah,
And I didn't necessarily go full alien here, but I did think that maybe they were dealing with an elemental simply because they took some of the rock, obviously from the earth, that maybe they irked, somebody who an entity that was in charge of or protecting. Plus, elementals are very territorial.
hmm
As long as you leave their shit alone, they're pretty, they're pretty good to just ignore you.
hmm
But as soon as you start taking stuff from, what they consider theirs, they're all over you, and they have every right to be. So, I mean, it, if you absolutely, and I don't recommend taking anything from a forest or a park or a volcano or anything, um, ever. But if for whatever reason you want a souvenir, ask permission. Can I please take this with me? Because I'll take care of it. I really like it.
hmm
Um,
when you're
and
asking
if
permission, you're actually asking who it belongs to. So it's just kind of
right,
get out there. So when you're asking, people are like, "Well, who do you ask?" it's yeah, you'll know when you're there. You're just asking permission. You're talking to whoever it belongs to.
yeah, and again, it's the show of respect.
hmm
And 'cause we had talked earlier about showing entities respect.
Yes.
Um, it could definitely be alien. Uh, why he would just slowly raise his head and then slowly lower it. I think it's just hilarious.
hmm
Um, but maybe that's all. Maybe he knew that that's all it really needed to do
hmm
in order to get his point across. Um, I'm interested to see because the person who wrote this just said, uh, "I've since tossed all the rocks from
Yeah.
the volcano."
hmm
But did you put them back?
Right.
Did that actually stop it, or did that? Did you just toss them in the trash? Did you just toss them out the back window? What does that mean? Um, usually this type of activity doesn't stop until you actually at least try to return it
hmm
to its rightful place. Um, so I guess we'll have to see in a follow up if that actually stopped everything. I really do like the fact that uh, this 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 person thought that sage was you know going to cleanse it and that of evil spirits. Like it's you're not dealing with evil spirits at all. You're probably dealing with pissed off aliens or irritated entities because you took what was theirs.
Right. That's what
Um,
people automatically, but it's scary to them. They think it's negative, and so the first thing they think is that it's a demon or entity, and they need
oh,
to do something to get rid of it. And
oh God, yeah.
that's not this case,
No, definitely not.
because he's referring to
Uh,
shadow people, I believe, or something. And so it's like, no, that's not what it is.
yeah, we've read up on shadow people and jinn,
hmm
etc. Yeah, you're all right.
hmm
Um, when it comes to that, you're not dealing with shadow people. You're definitely not dealing with a jinn. Um, so settle down.
Right.
Um,
Just, yeah. Don't take things that belong to you.
and don't take things that don't belong to you. Exactly.
hmm
Um, all right. So we are going to go to break, and then when we come back, we'll do the last story, and then we'll hop into we'll hop into our main topic. So, all right, we'll see you on the other side.
Hey, this is Mike Couch from Lost Limbs Foundation. Make sure you check out Mike and Dave on the Odyssey Files because they really need the listeners.
Hello, I'm Al Lagarde from Paper Route Productions, executive producer of Kindred Spirits, Paranormal State, a whole bunch of television shows. And I've worked with a lot of people on paranormal projects and met a lot of people in paranormal radio. And I want to say that Dave and Mike are two people who have a face for radio, in particular, internet radio.
Hey, it's Chris Fleming. More painful than a Tyrannosaurus Rex stepping on your testicle. Listen to Dave and Mike on Odyssey Files.
Hey everybody, it's Chad Lindbergh, and you are listening to the Odyssey Files with David and Michael. And let me tell you, it's almost as painful as a Skype glitch.
This is Andy Lynch, Director of Photography of Kindred Spirits. And when I'm not filming Amy and Adam at some creepy location, you can find me listening to the Odyssey Files with Dave and Mike. Or doing something else, I don't know.
Hello everyone, this is Ken Boggle. You know, you hear so many great moments during each and every episode of the Odyssey Files with Dave and Mike, but if I had to really choose my favorite moment, it would have to be when the show is over.
And we are back. Okay, so let's do this final story.
Okay.
Little creepy crawler story here. All right. Something crawled on my ceiling. So I'm chilling in my bedroom in the dark. My boyfriend is in the next room gaming. Shocker. I'm staring into the hallway absent-mindedly when something catches my eye. Something black, a foot wide, maybe bigger, is crawling across the ceiling. It looks like a giant spider in the dark. I call out, "What the actual F is that?" And my boyfriend comes running. Turn on the lights and nothing is there. I describe what I saw and he reassures me that there's nothing there. I don't spook easily at all, but I'm shaking, sitting on the edge of the bed. What I saw wasn't visually scary. It's more I felt this impending dread like I wasn't supposed to have seen it. The energy inside felt awful, so I cleansed. But I have no clue what that was. Anyone more clued in entities and cryptids have any idea? This is outside of my area of knowledge. So I definitely think that there are things around us all the time that we are not supposed to see. And it's actually been a question, and I don't need to get into this with you, Sena, because I know I will. That it has always been a question of mine of if sometimes when we see spirits manifest, if we see their arms, if we see this or that, do they intend it? You know, are they doing that on purpose, or did they pass an outlet and get a sudden jolt of energy and they don't even know that they are being seen? So I don't know if this is what it was, but you know, we've always been told, you know, shadow people, shadow figures are blacker than black, you know, and I've never seen one. I've never seen anything that was blacker than black, but I know people that have. Dave, for instance. And I know that shadow people can look however they want, and that they often show themselves as like spiders and creepy crawly creatures and stuff like that in order to typically just to get your attention, but maybe not necessarily. Um, they could be doing something again that you're not supposed to be aware of, and you're not supposed to see them. Um, I think that this is probably one of those cases. I think you're probably pretty accurate in the fact that you weren't supposed to be a witness to this thing crawling across your ceiling. It probably even happens more often than you know, and you're just not aware of it. Um, why this instance was different, I have no idea. But I think that if you never see it again, if it didn't come back and nothing was harmed, I think you were probably seeing more of a visitation than like a haunting, or something that is like in your home on a permanent basis or a regular basis. It might have just been passing through, and you're going to be just fine.
Sounds good. But okay, so mine, take on it. We go through a lot of shifts on the human level, and as you shift and evolve, you will start seeing more and more things, whether they're more paranormal, spirits, ghosts, other entities, because you're shifting and you're evolving, and so your abilities are also doing that as well. And when you're evolving more with your abilities, you're seeing things that you never seen before, and that's what's going on with her. She's very gifted, and now as the shifts keep continually happening, she's starting to see things that she wasn't able to before. They were there the whole time, yes, and she's just now seeing them, and that's why and those could be any different kind of entities, especially if she felt the way she did. She's that's clairsentient. She could feel the energy from it, so that's a psychic ability. So it's just she's starting to shift more to where she can feel things around her. When she looks at it, she can literally read it, and she does read energy. She read that. And so that's, it's been there the whole time. We get, things cross our path that they don't think we can see them, depending on how good they are. Yeah, we can see them. And they're like, oh, you saw us? Crap. They take off. Or, we have, the devil has the pecking order, different, so one of, the shadow person that you're talking about is one of that works for the devil. But these are also little like army men or something like that will go through and picking up energy from people or beings, and just that's what they do. Some of them are just little minions walking around taking energy from people, or because they're not living beings, and that's why she felt that's the way she felt about it. It's not a living being, but it works for. It's like an army person for the devil.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah.
Okay, well, good luck to you, lady.
Just protect yourself. If any situations like this, when children get scared and like that, start learning how to protect them or teaching them protection. That's the only thing I can suggest when things like this happens, because it will happen more and more often, especially if people are shifting, and our children are very gifted. Even we are, as we keep shifting and start working on our abilities, are like a muscle, and we strengthen them. As the more we use them, the stronger they get. And so just learn to protect yourself, so you don't ever have to worry about things like these. Just start learning protection and learning how to use your abilities, and to, any which way, and literally start paying attention when you feel something. Because it's definitely not good then. If that's how you felt, it was a negative being or negative entity or whatever it was, and you need to protect yourself immediately, and then don't worry about it.
Fair enough. All right. Well, that does it for tonight's stories. Before we get into the main topic, I was going to bring this up at the beginning of the show, and then, like a lot of things, I forgot. I know that, at least I don't think that a lot of like the longtime listeners are from the Twin Cities area. We're international, baby. But for those of you who are in like the Midwest thing, we have, if you want to see myself and my team, Odyssey Paranormal Society, September 30th. So coming up in a week and a half now. Well, a little bit over a week and a half, 2 weeks from yesterday. So we are going to be at the St. Cloud Armory for Paraconnection. Miss Sena is going to be there as well. And then October 14th at the Bayport Legion. We somehow not only were allowed to be a part of it, but given a speaking spot at the Witchy Weekend on the St. Croix. And that is Saturday, October 14th. I'm looking forward to that. I've never been to that type of an event. And I'm interested to see what happens. Also, Dave and I really want to do a show on witches and actually interview a white witch and a dark witch. So that would be a good place to try and find some guests for the show. That's why it matters to the Odyssey Files crew or listening crew. Maybe let's just call you the crew. Yeah. All right. Anyway, but just wanted to throw that out there, and then we have more presentations on the horizon. So if you're in the Midwest and you want to come out and see us, those are two places right there. Should be a fun time. Should be a fun weekend. So, all right. Lead us where you want us to go, Miss Sena.
All right. So you were wanting me to kind of share some of my stories on things that I have witnessed or been, in the presence of. And so I was trying to think of some a little bit more.
It gotta be evil.
Evil? Not evil ones, because Halloween's coming up.
Exactly. Everybody loves the evil ones.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I just returned from Deadwood, South Dakota today, actually. Michael messaged me and asked me if I could go. So they happened to catch it right on my way back.
I'm very big on giving notice.
Yes. And well, my very first time in South Dakota in Deadwood was actually with a paranormal team that I had just joined or was asked to accompany at that time. And I'm assuming it was like a group of 10, but it was, do I say the name of them or is that right? Or just to say?
You can if you want.
Okay. It's Things That Go Bump, Minnesota. And so I had accompanied them for the first time. And they asked me if I would accompany to this event or the investigation that they were having in South Dakota, Deadwood. And so the hotel they stay at, and this is the Seth Hotel. So very, very popular and well known. If anybody knows about Deadwood, they definitely know about the hotel, and they definitely know. So if people know about Deadwood, they know that the whole town is actually haunted. Doesn't matter where you go. Okay. And very haunted, but they're nice, kind of. All right. So a situation. So when I first got there, we came in and we go up to our rooms, and most of them had been there before. This was not their first time. It was only my first time, and then a couple other ones. And so it was a very big team. We had like 10 people. It was really unusual. We had probably 3 different teams there as far as different paranormal groups. There was 3 of them. So we combined and we went on this to go there to investigate. And so we all got into our rooms and it was cool. And then we decided that we were going to do the investigation throughout the time we were there. And so they gave us full range of the hotel, like the basement, and there's a cellar below the basement. Okay. And so to go work up to this, prior to that, there was a TV show there, Paranormal Team, Paranormal Show, won't mention it, caused problems. This is where I'm going to say they majorly provoked the spirits there. So when we walked in, John, one of the leads there, heads up the group, he's like, something feels off. I wouldn't know because I've never been there before. I walk in, I can see ghosts and, I don't interact with them, but they don't, I just kind of say, hey, I say hi, and they walk away, right? Well, he just said something's off. It doesn't feel right. Like it did last year, and so we happen to know the cook and we talked to the cook there and he's very gifted. And he told us about this TV show that had been there and what they did there. So there's a lot of children ghosts there. As well as different, all different ages. Okay. Well, the cook knew the children ghosts and he was always protecting them. And the cook is alive. He's a live being, earth being. And he says, he told them when they're there, he says, leave them alone. Well, they happened to go down into the cellar and without the cook one night and started problems and started like, okay, you don't have your protector here anymore. Now what do you have to say? And caused major problems. So this is what we walked into. But Seth, so we'll say, so Seth Hotel, that is named after the sheriff of the town. Okay, he's pissed now. I'm just going to tell you that. Yeah, so he actually came in because the cook wasn't there to protect him. Seth, at a spirit, form ghost, came in and scared the ever living crap out of this team of theirs, of this show. Okay. And then the cook found out. And so there was, things had gone on. But anyway, so we walked into that. So they're not, the ghosts and spirits there are not very happy about humans right now or any investigation team. Okay, so this is what we're walking into. And so we get up to our rooms, we're all checking in. Well, then we get to investigate the basement. Okay, let's get a little history on it real quick here. So the basement itself had many things that it was used for: a hospital, a children's hospital. It was used for when they were at war, that some of the, it just housed some of, when whoever the warriors were at that time, that they housed them. And so it's been through many different eras of things happening there, but deaths. And so so we're in there, and it's hard to explain, but the basement itself is like 2 bars. And then there's a wall in between it separating. So there's actually 2 rooms. But then off of there, if you go downstairs, is the cellar. Okay. So we're all they're all setting up equipment. And there's 2 of us in this group that actually are mediums and psychics. And her and I are kind of walking together, walking around and kind of checking things out. And then, but the other teams are setting up all their equipment. Well, we didn't know it, but one team went down in the cellar by themselves. Okay, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on that one really quick. One of them was starting to dabble into demonology. Yeah. So yeah, so John sees them going down and says, okay, if I don't see you in 45 minutes, I'll come down and find out what, make sure you're okay. Right. They're like, oh, okay. And it's just a 2-person team. And they're experienced, right? They're experienced. So they go down and okay. So I'm like, I didn't think nothing of it because John had talked to them. So we're, so Char and I, Char is the other medium, and are on one side of the wall. And so we're in our own room and we just sit down, and we have it dim. It's not dark, but it's dim. And all of a sudden, as we're sitting there, we both decided just to kind of open up, right? And literally the spirits there felt that they could trust us because they felt that we were no harm, and opened up and literally showed us, took us back in time, and it literally opened up to be gambling tables back into like gunslinger days. It was so cool. And they were all literally playing cards and gambling. We were sat there and watched for a little bit. And then we got up and see if they would allow us to partake. And so we're watching. Well, we had to walk. I believe it was Shar walked past one table, and it was a very serious gamblers. And she got to feel like, okay, I'm not allowed over there. So she had to walk away because she was going to just like watch the game, as they were playing of the cards for poker. And they were like, no, you're not allowed here. And so she's like, okay. And of course, we're female. They know it was, but they were looking at us weird because we had pants on. So they're just kind of looking at us a little weird. Well, then somehow they asked us to dance up on stage. And so we had to try to figure out where the stage was because it's laid out different now than back then. And so they wanted us to go up on stage and dance. So we did. And we could see them watching us. And, so we danced and, and they loved it and stuff like that. And then Shar ended up partaking in one of the card games throughout the thing. Well, Shar and I were, we kind of went back and we started sitting down and still observing a little bit. Well, all of a sudden, as we're sitting there, we all of a sudden saw the 2 of the paranormal team that were down in the cellar run from the other room and run into the room that goes up to the elevator and gone. And we were like, what the heck just happened? And we look over to the door that they had just like went through to go upstairs to go out of the basement. And there is a man there that's out of era. He was from the 50s. And he was standing there. And I'm looking at him and she goes, "You see what I see?" And I said, "Yes." And I said, "He's out of his era." I said, "We're in like gunslinger days here." And he's from the 50s. I mean, he's like, looks like a gangster. And he's got, he's got the black hat on, well suit, black suit. And he's just kind of leaning there. And I go, "He's supposed to be protecting something. And I don't know what is going on." I said, "Something just happened." And so then we go and she continues to gamble because by through the night, she was actually gambling with some of the players there from that era. It was really, really cool. And she was betting, she was actually drinking with them. So they went and bought a drink for her. She bought a drink for them. It was really cool. It's so fun. I mean, we had literally, they kept it open and let us to watch the whole scene. It was the whole thing. And we got to watch the dancers from that era dance as well, because they said, you can come back, but next time you need to wear a dress. So we had to dress in their, attire, be appropriate for that era. Well, so then I go and I talk to John. I said, "What just happened?" And he goes, "Oh my gosh, I forgot they were down there. I was supposed to go check on him after 45 minutes. And I'm like, "What the heck?" And I go, "Well, you're going to go up and check on them, make sure they're okay?" I said, "They just ran through," and I said, "up and like nothing." And I said, "I've never, ever seen them like that." Okay, these two are never scared of anything. They'll go check on everything, right? No, they were like as fast as they could running. Okay, up to the, well, then come to find out later, because we're like, okay, they have not come out of their room since then. We finished the investigation, and we trying to figure out like where are they? And I won't mention them if you want me to. But so I'm just like, where'd they go? Well, so we've decided to go investigating through the, because Deadwood is all casinos. And so we started walking through the casinos and then kind of saying, "Hey, do you see anything in here?" We're just walking around and seeing if we can see ghosts walking through, right? And all of a sudden, John, because then I asked him, I says, "Well, where are the two?" Because usually they're bar hopping. They're drinkers. They enjoy. Okay, they like to party. And they like to have fun. And of course, they would be with us. And we have not seen nothing of them. They are still sitting in their hotel room. And we're like, what the heck just happened? So then I find out, because then I said, "Okay, I'm going to," then John, I talked to John and says, "What's going on?" And I'm not tapping in yet. And he says, "I talked to them." And he goes, "Something happened down there." And all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, just a minute. Okay. Also, something else happened. So I'm going to back up really quick here. When Shar and I were in the room on the one side, and the other paranormal, the rest of the paranormal team was on the other side of the wall, which is the other bar. One of the pair team, okay, I've been teaching, so I teach people, what to do properly, and I protect them and show them what they need to do. So I told everybody prior to going into the investigation, they had to protect themselves, bubble up, whatever you need to do, and I proceeded to tell them how to do it if they didn't. So they all were supposed to do that prior to coming into this investigation. Well, all of a sudden, one of the other lead from the team comes over, and it's Ryan, and he sits down. Okay, mind you, this guy is 6'3", I believe. Ryan is. I'm not trying to remember. He's very, very tall and big guy. Okay. All of a sudden, he comes down and he's got this weird look on his face, and he just sits by me, and I'm looking at him. I'm like, and I look at Shar, and I go, he's not saying a word. I go, "Are you okay?" And he just looks at me, goes, "I don't feel so good." Well, I happen to like open up and look at him, and I'm seeing arrows shot into him. And I'm like, "What the heck did you just do?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And so, psychically, spiritual, I'm pulling arrows out of him. I'm like, "What did you just do?" And he said, "I said something to the ghost. I don't think they liked it." And I'm like, "Okay, we got to get these out of you," because he was just not feeling. I'm like, "What are you doing?" And so I'm pulling those out of him, doing healings on him. Because I got them all finally, like it says, you're not able to see them on a human level. It's just when you open up, you can see spiritually what's going on here, right? And so I pulled them all out, and I'm like doing healings on them, and I'm like, okay, breathe, and walking him through it, and finally got done. And I'm looking, I'm like, "Don't ever do that again." I said, "Oh my gosh."
What did he say?
It was just something that he was just talking to them. And I think he was playing poker with somebody over there. And you know how they go off, and whoever it is, if you say something wrong at a card game in that era, they'll shoot you. Well, he got arrows into him. It was quite a few into his stomach. And I was just like, holy, because literally he just sat down like, "I don't feel so good." I was like, "What did you just do?" Well, we're over there talking to the guys and started to, if they wanted to play cards. So we had cards at each spots of the table. and they weren't liking him. I guess whatever he was doing and how he's playing cards, whatever it was, they didn't like him. So they were taking him out. Okay, so now we're going to move forward after that because I kind of forgot that part. Sorry. So the reason I wanted to bring that up is because, okay, so when we're walking around the casinos now, after we had closed up that investigation down in the basement, we're going to do it another night. So we walked off and through the night, and we're walking through different casinos. And so John, I asked him, I said, what's going on? Why isn't the other two coming down? Well, something must have spooked them. What? And he goes, I talked to them, and he goes, something really spooked the crap out of them. And so then I just tap in and said, okay, I'm going to tap in right away to find out what happened. So I go and I tap into the basement, and I see a serpent, and I'm not joking. A serpent is going like it's a huge black serpent, and I see it like whirling around the cellar, and I'm like, what the hell? And I looked at John. I go, I'm seeing a serpent down there, and he goes, that's what they said. And I'm like, what did she do? And I'm like, I can't believe this. Because like I said, I already knew what she was starting to dabble in. Well, what she did, okay, so they went downstairs. And if you know about Seth, he did some female things that shouldn't, did some things to some females. Well, so when they went down to the cellar, there's this, the stairway. They went down. Well, she was talking to Seth, and she says, I know what you did. So he had his men on the top of the stairs and on the bottom of the stairs and kept them there and says, you will not tell anyone. And this is because he had done naughty things to one of the female workers there. It's not being said, but she just called him out on it, and he was like, you are not taking this anywhere, and you are not telling anybody. And he literally, his henchmen, both sides, trapped them, and just like, if you do, and then the serpent, he turned into a serpent, and they scared that, and they took off. The men moved aside, and they, then the two, of the paranormal team took off and went up. And so then when I found that out, I go, what the heck did she do that for? Well, then, okay, so I'm going to bring up Ryan again because Ryan's standing beside me because, again, I'm kind of I'm teaching everybody how to do things and how to tap in, whatever. And he tapped in the same time I did. The serpent ended up in him and through his chest. I'm looking over at him, and he's like, I can't breathe. And I'm like, and all of a sudden I go, no, I said, you're not to tap in. I says, you have to put up a block for them to tap back in. When you do that, you can tap in, but you put up a block so they can't come through that tap. And I again set him down. I am trying to get this serpent out of Ryan now. And everybody's trying to figure out what is going on. And I'm seeing this, nobody else can. And I'm like, shit. And I'm pulling, crap. I'm pulling it out of him. And I'm like, oh no. And so I'm just like, crap. And I'm like, I can't get it out of him, right? It keeps, more I'm pulling it, the more it's pushing itself back in. So it's like the serpent's like going into him. Okay, that's what I'm seeing. It's like this serpent's like this big going into him. And it's like a black, almost a dragon, but it's a snake. Okay, and it's going into him. And I'm like, oh crap. So I'm like, okay, Archangel Michael, I need you here right now. I said, I need you to cut this and get it out of there. And all I see at that moment is the sword go down and the head fall at Ryan's feet. And I'm like, whew. And so I go in and I'm cleaning everything out. And by this time, I'm like, thank you. And I'm cleaning this thing out as fast as I can. And then I'm doing a healing on him. And I'm looking at Ryan and says, don't you ever do that again. And I'm like healing fast as I can and pulling everything out of him, and I'm healing him. And all of a sudden he can breathe again. He's like, oh. And I'm like, when you tap in, put a block up so they can't tap back. I said, I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, throughout this entire investigation, everything I have learned up until then, I had to use on that investigation on everybody. Certain people kept allowing things to enter them. Twice on one lady, I had to clear her because she had an attachment twice after I told her stop it. She was doing it on purpose to get attention. I said, I'm done. I looked at her friend, and her friend was Shar. I says, you need to tell her to stop because I'm not going to continue to do this throughout the time we are here, and I'm done. I said, I need to protect this team, and I can't just keep keeping an eye on her because I need to watch everybody, obviously. I said, And so it's just throughout that entire time, I literally had to use everything I learned up until that point of everything, how to protect, how to pull things out of people, to bubble up everybody, everything. I mean, pulling hitchhikers off of people. And it was so funny because after it, John, the lead, he's like, I am so sorry. That's how bad it was. I'm just like, well, it was kind of a good, I said, I'm laughing about it because I thought it was kind of funny because I actually ended up using everything I was ever taught or shown up to this point about psychic ability, anything like that I had to use for, I used on this one. So I was wondering if I said why I was always taught all this. And so he kind of like, still apologizing up and down. Well, Ryan, throughout this, so we were in each other's rooms and we were talking, and so Ryan, me continually working on him, you'll find some of us can see people have wings. Well, throughout this, I looked at Ryan eventually. By the end of the night, I think it was like probably 3 times now that I had probably had to clear him, cut cord, do things that, yeah, okay. So I was like, okay, you guys, just stop. All right, just bubble up, protect yourself, right? And stop tapping in. Don't tap in. Whatever. Nobody tap in. Okay. No. If you want to open up, you can open up, but be careful. And so, but I look over at him and he's laying on the bed. This is pretty late at night now. We've been out and a lot of things been going on. And I look over at him and I'm like, and he says, I feel different, but it's a good different. And I looked over at him and literally I could see his wings literally like come out. So throughout that time of him, he literally was evolving and I helped him get his wings. But yet it's at like if this is his spiritual self coming out through that. And it was just like, well, that's cool. Well, John goes, but that's not fair. He's like, I want my wings. I'm like, I have no control over this. I said, I don't know how this happened. I just did what I was supposed to do. And he says, obviously, Ryan ended up with his wings today. I said, and it's not passing over. No, it's just literally spiritually, he got his wings. And it says, we have a spiritual battle that we're fighting on the other side. Well, he got his wings to be able to help on the other side spiritually to help with the fight that we're going through. And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about wings. So he now has become one of the fighters and warriors on the other side to help.
So 2 questions.
Yes.
1, am I correct in assuming that I don't have my wings yet?
No, you do not.
Well, that sucks. All right. Question number 1 or question number 2. When the sword cut off the head of the serpent, which was this Sheriff Seth.
Correct.
What happened to the entity?
So the sheriff turned back into himself and went and left back to the hotel. He literally because it was part of him, but it wasn't killed. It was just so it wouldn't attack Ryan anymore. And that's what we were just trying to do to get it out of Ryan. And so all we did when we cut the head was stop it from continuing to emerge itself into Ryan. And so it stopped it. And that's what I was trying to, because every time I tried to pull it out, it would go right back in. And I was just like fighting with this serpent. And so when he cut the head, it couldn't do that anymore. It lost its ability to be a serpent to enter a body then. And so it recessed back to Seth and what he was in, ghost or spirit form. Because he's very powerful. That he's been there for a long time, and he's gained a lot of energy from people that have come in there. And when they gain a lot of energy, they can morph into a lot of different things. And that's what he did.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that sounded like fun. I think I probably would have had an aneurysm just out of frustration. Yeah, I don't know what I would have said if I was gambling with the guys. I don't know if they would like me or not. They would probably think that I was an easy target, and a little bit too respectful. I mean, obviously you got to talk a little tough.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
to show that you're, a man and can do this,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't want to cross the line, obviously.
Yeah.
So, I mean, probably leave your mama jokes at home. I'm
Yes.
assuming.
These are gunslingers. They have no problem shooting, killing people. No.
Apparently, they can shoot arrows.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was like, where in the heck did those come from? Yeah, bizarre.
I would think that would be more native than it would be a gunslinger.
That's what I said. That's why when he came in and I looked down, I'm like, what the heck did you just do? Trying to figure out what happened. It was just bizarre. And I'm just like, okay, it came from, because he walked from the other side and walked over and told me what he did. And I'm like, Brian, oh my gosh. And yeah, pull him out as fast as I could. Oh.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's an interesting, it was an interesting weekend.
Oh yeah. Oh, that was more than a weekend that we were there. That was the problem. I was exhausted, but was giddy because I got to use all my abilities, everything I had learned up until then, through that. And that was okay. So that was 6 years ago. So yeah, it was
Gotcha.
interesting.
So we're gonna speed forward to a more recent case. This is the case you and I both worked on.
Okay.
So just to set this up, I got contacted by a woman that's in the southern Minnesota who thought that she was being attacked and everything by a demon. And she had contacted many teams. Some went, some didn't. I was told by a buddy of mine that she's crazy. Don't listen to her. But we got to do our due diligence. And if the investigation turned out well, or turned out to it be completely quiet and no evidence, well, then we can be like, yeah, that's just you. Lived in a fourplex, I believe. Fourplex or an eightplex. I think it was an eightplex. And so it was you, Cameron, and myself. Just us three. Nobody else was able to go for whatever reason. And we did our investigation. And the thing that it was quiet for the most part. And the thing that I still laugh about and still tell people about is, like I usually do throughout the evening, if I'm like with around Scott or Cameron, or if you're there, are they here? Are they listening? That's all I want to know. Right. Like I don't need you to answer the questions for me or for them. I just want to know if they're here and they're listening. That's all I need. And I believe your response was yes, but they're bored. And I was like, oh, is that so? So I kind of took that as a little bit of a challenge. And anybody who knows me and my sense of humor, I'm obviously gonna switch paths, switch what I'm doing. And so I thought that it would be clever if I started asking questions about sex and just this and that, and what do you prefer? And, just kind of being a jackass, but who knows if they're bored, this is non-boredom type conversation. So I did that for about, I don't know, 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes. I don't know what it was. And I asked you again, I'm like, are they still bored? I believe was my exact question. And your answer was just, no, they're pissed. And I was like, what? I didn't know why that would piss them off. I'm like, I wasn't insulting them or anything. So that threw me for a loop. Do you remember why my questions were making them mad?
They felt it was insulting because they really can't do that on the other side. And so they felt it very, because you were just having a ball with it, and they're just they were getting frustrated. They're like, this isn't funny. Why is he's laughing his ass off thinking this is, and it's not. And so they were just starting to fight because you kept on. They were just like, well, did you shut up?
I had a lot of questions.
Oh my gosh. They were just like, seriously, no, we don't have sex over here. Okay. Knock it off.
Well, I mean, a lot of it was preferences when they were alive,
Hmm.
so I mean, they could have answered that. So, but yeah. So I mean, that I apologized. Obviously, I didn't know that it wasn't my intent to piss them off. It's just they said they were bored, and I was trying to do non-boring questions,
Yep.
and that was the only thing that came to mind.
Wow. Imagine that.
Well, I mean, granted, I wasn't, it had been quiet up until then.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was real, what was in, the client's mind. It's just like whatever. Yes, you say that they're there and that's fine, but were they the problem? And they really weren't.
No.
Because what we found out was that, I mean, it wasn't a demonic entity or anything, but it was a poltergeist that she was obviously creating herself. And kind of the sad part about it was, and this was a one of very, very few cases that I didn't solve.
Mhm.
And I tell my team all the time, sometimes you can't help. You can only go to a certain level, and then it's up to them or somebody more experienced and with different abilities than what we have.
Yeah. And she came to me afterwards. So I have actually helped her through it.
Did she?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that until right now. Thank you for sharing that information.
You did ask me, and I tell you, I said, yeah, she's been contacting me.
Nope, I never asked you that. I thought we were all done with that one.
She contacts me quite often. And then
Still?
Off and on now, which is she's a friend of me on Facebook. So every once in a while she has stuff that she's going through, and I walk her through it, and she's like, okay, thank you.
Is she still with the guy from California?
I don't know.
Why don't you ask that question?
Because it's just here and there. She just, she pops in and she's got a question or she's going through something. She tells me, or I call her, and then it's done. So she doesn't talk.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that guilt's out the window.
So I have okay. So as long as we're talking about this case, did
Sure.
she did say that she had tried to kill herself a couple of times and they brought her back. Is that correct? What she told you?
I don't know. I actually don't know.
I believe that was because I had told her, I said, once you do that, I said, you have connections to both sides now. And I said, that's how I had talked to her. And I'm like, you created a problem now because they're going to go through you, and they know if one side gets you, they can get to the other. And I said, so you have now caused a problem. And I said, you need to learn how to protect yourself and put up a wall. And she said she did learn how to put the wall up. But then she was having, I don't remember what it was, but I guess this is how many years ago now? I can't remember, but
it's at least like 3 or 4. Yeah.
Yeah. And she was just like, I put the wall up, and she goes, no. And then she would call me either a couple of days or a week later, and she's like, I can't get my wall back up again. And they're coming back. And I said, you need to be strong and put it back up. And I said, stop allowing them in. And so I was working with her, told her how, what she really is, because she's a very gifted person. That's why she was able to do this, because she's highly gifted. But it's just stuff that she was going through. And then she, tried to kill herself. They brought her back. As far as I was known from the story that she had told us, it's like that she was trying to kill herself, and then she was actually dead. And then the doctor brought her back, and she was pissed because she didn't want to be here. But that right there caused her to be a gateway for both sides now. And that's why a lot of this started happening.
It sounds vaguely familiar and yet doesn't. So I don't know if that happened after our investigation.
Okay.
Or what?
Because she sat down and told us kind of the story, but a lot of her history. Because she said, I've been seeing things throughout my life or whatever. But she goes, this is huge. I don't know what to do, and it scares me. And my children are not allowed to be living with me because of this is going on, because they think I'm crazy. And so then I talked to her, and then after the talk, then I opened up. I said permission, opened up, and told her what she was and what's going on.
I do remember that. Yeah, because the last thing that I remember from that case was you and Scott double cleansing her house. Like you stunk the place up.
Welcome to my that's my clearings.
No, I know. But I mean, I tried to tell another client of mine recently. I'm like, kids can't be there. I'm like, they won't be able to breathe. I'm like, you just it needs to be cleared
Yes.
of living people because it's bad. But I remember you telling me when we were leaving after doing that she was already letting it back in.
Yep.
As we left, and at that point in time, it kind of became to me like I can't help anymore. Like this, we've done all we can. I showed her the evidence. We told her what she had to do. She wasn't prepared to do it.
Right.
But that that's an interesting case.
Well, I remember it was so funny though. Do you remember that there was not you're getting frustrated because nothing was going off. You weren't hearing anything. And as soon as you walked out the door, do you remember that we saw that go off? Cameron and I saw the thing go off, and you're like, oh, and you're like, what? I said it just went off, and he's like, no.
I think that does sound vaguely familiar. I must have purged that from my memory.
Oh, it was so funny because you're like, really? I just walked out, and I go,
Well, yeah. I wonder if that's the one where I went off. Because there was an investigation. I mean, it happened multiple times where as soon as I left the room, things went off. And there was one investigation. I was like, come on. I'm like, what the hell?
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know if that was it or if that was one of the things that brought me to that level. But now that's just kind of a tactic we use. There's nothing going on. I'm like, I'll leave the room for a while. Let's see if something happens. This battery is low. Let me go change it. Let's see if something happens while I'm gone. And I do hear my investigators often when I do that go, okay, well now the mic's gone. Is there anything that you want to say? Haven't gotten an answer to that one yet, but I am happy though to say that in recent investigations, more stuff has happened around me, as opposed to me being the one that nothing ever happens around.
Right.
So that's good. It means I'm relaxing a little bit more. Yeah, I just wanted to get that because I thought it was a hilarious story. And it was, I mean, the investigation itself was a quiet one, but the surrounding need to find a solution for this one was quite imperative. I mean, she was very, very scared, and I believed her of that one, and I didn't know exactly what was going on, which is obviously why we investigate.
Right.
So we probably have time for one more story. Let's jiv it up.
Okay. Okay, this is kind of
evil.
Oh, I mean,
evil.
I don't know if I have
evil.
I don't know. Well, I suppose, I mean, people that are not familiar with paranormal, if I even talk about paranormal, they're like, oh my gosh, that's scary. And it's nothing to me. So maybe some of my stories are scary, but I don't realize they are.
Have you ever encountered an actual demon?
Demon?
Yes.
Yeah, I pull a lot of people.
Okay. There you go. People love demons. That's why they think everything is a demon.
I know they do. That's why I said we talked before. I says everybody think if they feel negative energy that it's automatically a demon, they're going to sage.
God, yes. Yes. Yes, they do.
Yeah. But no, I have people, like I said, I can, when people are in investigations, and I'll turn around, and if someone's not feeling good, they feel lightheaded, and I'll tell them immediately, you don't want to go into investigation. If you feel prior to going into investigation, if you feel lightheaded or sick to your stomach, come to me immediately. You have a hitchhiker. Okay. Please come to me immediately. And so, through, Deadwood, that was majorly, pulling it up. I'm like, seriously, would you stop letting them hitchhike? This is not funny anymore. So you do that. But people, what happens, children a lot of times, but they get taken over by negative entities because they love their energy. They're very bright lights. Children are, and that's what it's almost like a beacon. They're shown they can see that, and so that draws a lot of negative entities to them, and they try to take their energy because of that, or smother it because they want it. They want to try to take it or control it, and sometimes that's how that happens. So I hear a lot about that. A lot of people come to readings, so I have a lot of readings with people. I'm currently, I do events and stuff, and when I do some of the readings, I hear people, give me certain situations, and then I'll tell them what's going on. I said, "Oh, your child." I says, "This is what's going on with them because they're they're scared because this entity is trying to take them over, like their energy." And somebody actually told me about one that they felt like their child was possessed, and so I had to clear it out, pull it out, and clear them. It happens. It's not. I mean, it's not big stories I can tell because I would just go in the reading. They would tell me what's going on. I said, permission to tap into your child, and they said yes. And I'll tap in. I'm like, oh, this is what's going on. I said, do you want me to fix that right now? And they said, yeah, because I don't have to be in the presence of anybody to do things. I can tap in, fix it, and then tap out. Which anybody can once they learn how to use their abilities. It's just learning that everything is energy, and we can go to anything and do anything. It's just what we are, spiritual beings. We're just in a meat suit. So, but
I like to call them the otherwise bodied.
the otherwise body. Okay, here's okay. We'll do it real quick. We got 10 minutes. Okay, so I was asked to come in to clear a home, and yes, I bought lots of sage, but this one needed. Okay, so when I'd go come in, I'll usually tap in just a little bit to see if I need, I'll talk to my spirit guides and say, okay, is this going to be a really bad one? Do I need to bring all three? Because when I sage and it's really bad, I'm going to do where I have a staff, and that literally I use it. It's a big
Yep.
yeah. Okay, and so if things are really bad, I'm bringing that, and so it's stages. There's 3 different stages that I'll do. Then I'll go in and I will first walk through the home to find out what I'm up against. And then I'm like, okay, this is what I need to do then. And so then I will sage. And at the same time, I'm saging, again, smoking out the entire resin. So this home that I was saging, I was asked to come in because the aunt, I believe, had passed, but she was crazy. And then they also found that it was haunted. On top of it, there was like something that was almost like she was possessed by this thing that was there. And so they says, okay, we're rebuilding this home. We need to clear it out. There's stuff here and we can just feel it. And so I got in there. Well, I was also teaching other 2 people how I sage and what do I do, because it seemed to last. Whatever I did, it seemed to really, every home I went into, it lasted. And what they were using, it seemed like it was a temporary last, and all of a sudden it would come back, whatever it was. So I was teaching them, so they're watching me, and I'm walking through, and I always start when I'm doing it, go from the basement up. And so this is gutted out. This entire home was actually it was brand new, it was being built. And so it was being built, but on another home that was there anyway. So I go down the basement, and it's a wintertime fall, so it's cold. So we got our jackets on, and so I'm down there, and I got to know the couple, that they owned it, and I'm like, okay, cool. So I got to, like, okay, cool. One's got abilities, I can see that. Okay, but I just walked away, and so I'm saging and I'm talking to people because they want to know what I'm doing. So I'm like, you want to walk with me, fine, but I'm gonna like smoke this place out. And so I'm walking around with my abalone shell and smoking everybody out. And I walk over to this corner, and one of the girls is behind me that I'm teaching, and I'm giggling, and she's like, "What are you laughing at?" I said, "Oh my gosh, this demon is pissed and trying to get away from me, and I'm not allowing him to get away from me. I'm literally like saging him, putting this all over him, and holding him in place, and he can't move." And she's like, and I says, most people probably think this is, I don't know. I said, I just feel it's funny. I'm sorry, because I see them squirm, and I'm cracking up because they can't do anything, and all they can do is just like, okay, now you better, like, you can't be here anymore. You're not, because I'll walk through the entire place and walk through and mentally say, whatever's here, you need to leave because you're not allowed. Not allowed to say. And I will continue to sage, and then I'll put my hand on all the walls and walk through and literally like put love and light energy through the entire structure and land. Because when I walked out after doing it, I found that there was a lake by there. Water is a conductor, but it holds energy. So anything that's happened there, you need to clear that water because that's going to hold anything that has been there. It causes memories, everything. If you've ever seen Frozen 2, it explains that actually in that cartoon about water. And so it actually does. It's true. It does actually hold memories. And so I had to clear that entire property, but I'm in the house. And so I'm, walking through, and she's laughing behind me because I'm giggling. And I'm just, I think this is hilarious. But then I stopped and I'm like, oh, and she goes, what? And I go, I see this woman and she's spinning and she keeps spinning. And all of a sudden so then they got one of the owners, the girls down, and I'm explaining this woman, and she goes, oh, that's my aunt. And I said, well, she's just spinning right now. And she goes, yeah, she was kind of crazy. And I said, well, she's still here. I says, do you want me to clear this entire home and get everything out of it so nothing's here? And she said, yes, please. I said, okay, I'll help her pass over. I said, because she's just staying here. I said, I will tell you that. I said, I will get rid of him. I said, but there's a demon here too I need to get rid of. And she says, yes, please do it. I said, so I did. So I vanquished the demon so he no longer can exist anywhere. And then I cleared her to where she was like coherent to what I was doing, and then helped her pass. Like, you cannot be here. You need to move on. And so then I walked on and continued. I kept going on and checking to make sure that nothing else was hiding anywhere, because they will hide in corners if you don't get to them. And so, I'm opening up and looking around and, putting love and light through the entire structure and the land, everything. Well, then we go upstairs. And of course, most of the people are upstairs because it's all smoky downstairs. So now I'm upstairs and I'm proceeding to do this upstairs. And this doesn't have nothing to do with the story, but I was going to add to it. Somebody got stung up there, at the time that I was downstairs smoking it out. And of course, because bees don't like sage, they don't like it. Well, somebody ended up getting stung somehow upstairs. And so I was talking to the gentleman. Well, then as I'm walking around upstairs, all of a sudden I stopped and I looked at the guy and I go, you have Bigfoots out here. And he looks at me and goes, how did you know that? And I says, because when I said, oh, and I said, I'll back up real quick. So like I said, I do 3 stages. And so I put intentions through the structure. I sage everywhere. Then I take my staff and I'll raise it up and put love and light. I have a huge crystal at the top of it. And so I raise it up. And then once that's filled and charged, I slam it down. And then it pushes out all the love and light, and it keeps pushing. So everything's clear, everything that's, and I'll do it 3 times. I'll lift it up. Well, when I did it the first time, that's when all of a sudden I looked outside and I looked at the guy and I go, you've got Bigfoots here. And he goes, how did you know that? I says, because I just scared him. I said, I did that and saw him. And I'm like, and I had to say, I'm sorry. I was just clearing the home. I apologize for, interfering or, anything. I said, I'm not here to hurt you. And he goes, oh my gosh. He says, nobody knew that. And I says, they're connected to you. I said, they're here protecting you. I said, for whatever, I said, obviously because what is going on here. Well, come to find out, he actually worked in a workshop that was down on the driveway. If you followed it down further back, there was another garage or whatever, and that was his workplace. That's where he would work. And so I said, can you show me this place after we got done? Because I went out and I cleared the land after that. I did everything and cleared out the home, making sure there's nothing left in the home, and cleared it all out. And so then we started talking to those two, and everybody else was asking me about what I was seeing, and teaching everybody what I was doing and the importance of the stages I was going through when I was doing the clearing. And so we walked outside, cleared that, and then I said, can you please walk me down to your workshop where it is? And so he goes, if it's right there, and it happened to be at night, so the light was on at a shop. And I looked, and I look over to the side, and I go, there's a Bigfoot right there watching you. And he goes, yes, they're around me all the time. I said, well, they're not here to hurt you. I said, they're here to protect you. He goes, I know that. I said, okay, just figured you would like to know. And so it's kind of cool that I got to, vanquish demon and help somebody pass over and interact with Bigfoot. So it was kind of cool.
His name is Daryl.
Daryl, huh? And does he eat dried whatever, beef jerky?
Jack Links or whatever. Well, no, actually, that's a Progressive commercial. They have that twice, but yeah, they have Flo sitting on a log with him,
okay,
and saying like, people are just scared of what they don't understand, Bigfoot, and he's like, what did you call me? She's like, Bigfoot. She's like, my name is Daryl. Anyways,
sorry.
No. because that is something. Now that I have night vision goggles,
Mm.
might have to take the team out squatching,
Okay.
which is something they are never going to do. I believe that's part of their contract. Like, I can't force them into the woods.
Right.
But like we have often talked about whether it would be very beneficial to have like a psychic medium on the team going into the woods to convey the fact that you're not there to hurt them. You're not there to just shoot them and stuff like that. But since we're on Bigfoot, just really quick, because we only have like 3 minutes, and there's not enough time for another story. If you have no intention of shooting a Bigfoot, a Sasquatch, but you bring a loaded gun for protection, do they understand that you have no intent, or do they understand that you are loaded and that's all they need to know?
No, as long as you don't make an action towards them, they're not going to do anything. They'll observe, and then because they're going to just watch what you're doing. They're not there to hurt you. They're interdimensional beings, and
Right.
so
I know that.
Okay, and so all they're doing, I mean, they're just walking in, having fun in the forest or doing whatever, and then they'll go back into their dimension, which is through the trees, and back to and this is back and forth. But if somebody gets near the porthole, the tree, then they're very protective of that.
Fair enough.
Okay, but the gun, no, not unless it's raised to them or somebody tries to shoot them. They feel that there is a problem. They're not going to do anything.
Okay, last question. Would, if during a session where we're trying to get the Bigfoot's attention, I were to start asking sex questions, would they get pissed or would they find that funny?
They find it funny.
Excellent. See, Bigfoot's, I'm in the wrong field.
Yeah, but they find it very immature.
Well, that sucks. I mean, can't they just figure out that I'm just having fun?
Yeah, but they just feel it's immature.
Well, they're immature.
They're very highly evolved beings, and so they're more they don't talk. They're telepaths.
So what would I need to do? Recite poetry?
No, to them? No, just talk. They're just there was an episode somewhere. I know we only have like 1 minute, but no, you can actually like use dice and write out words, so you can start talking to them. You can speak to them, but they just don't do it. And if you learn to do mind links, you can talk to them, in the telepathic way. But otherwise, just start doing dice. It's got words on them, and start spelling out words. Like you've got the Scrabble names, just start spelling out words and talk to them. Good morning, and they'll get. You can build a relationship with them.
Interesting. All right. Well, we'll end this on that cliffhanger. Thank you for coming on at such short notice. I really appreciate it.
It was fun.
Yeah, and for sharing some of your stories finally.
Sorry, they weren't so scary. Sorry.
One man's scary is another man's carnival ride. I don't know. So, all right. Well, hopefully Dave will be internet ready by next week, where we will then have our Poltergeist show. So until then, stay healthy, stay safe. Want to see you back here next week. Everyone, have